You're about to listen to the Pro Wrestling Zone podcast, a Majestic production property. One of the quickest rising professional wrestling podcasts on the market today, and the most entertaining podcast in the history of existence. Please note, before diving into the show, that this is for entertainment purposes only, so myself and Peanut Gallery engage in exaggerations, dirty or offensive jokes, and satirical comments. If you are a triggered little snowflake who gets professionally offended, this is not the podcast for you. If you do enjoy our work, we ask that you contribute to our Patreon page at patreon.com/MajesticP. Contributors get access to the Discord, vote on what topic we cover, and enjoy exclusive content such as pay-per-view watch parties. Here's a sample of that from NXT TakeOver Portland. What about the other company that Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly went from?
Oh, ROH?
The one that they were signed exclusively to.
Oh, Ring of Honor?
Oh, no. Oh, that's going to be a lot of fun. Oh my God. I felt that in my hand. If this is something you believe you would enjoy, visit our Patreon at patreon.com/MajesticP and become a patron. This ensures that we continue to entertain you for years to come. Without further ado, sit back and enjoy the show. And we are back. So this is Dark Side of the Ring covering Jimmy Superfly Snuka and Nancy Argentino, where, it was okay, let's just be fucking honest. He killed Nancy Argentino.
Yeah, exactly.
This was 1989,
Yep.
So it's kind of like under the rug. What were your thoughts on the episode?
That sheriff is so fucking corrupt.
Oh my God! So this thing was an onion of layers.
Oh my, yeah, it was.
If you do not know, in the early mid '80s, Jimmy Superfly Snuka was the man.
He was one of the hottest acts in WWF.
Yep.
But he had a couple little demons.
Yes. So
smoking, drinking, and drugs.
Yes. So we have.
And infidelity.
Yes. So Nancy Argentino was a 23-year-old girl who honestly was really attractive,
but she was a ring.
She was a ring. To what I've heard, that she was a ring rat,
which is essentially a person who hangs out with all the wrestlers
and dates all of them.
Right.
So Sunny, Tammy Sitch.
Right.
Same person.
Yeah, kind of like the person that we met at the Impact event.
Yep.
She was a former ring rat.
Yep.
Because she used to date all the people that came into Vegas.
Yep. That's a ring rat.
Right.
And fun fact, Dave Meltzer back in the 80s, when he was starting to do his reporting, he would go to the ring rats,
right,
because the ring rats were the ones who knew all the gossip, and you knew it was all true because all of them had them inside of them.
Right.
So it was kind of a fun little tidbit there. But the rumor is that, well, two of them, before we really dive deep into the episode, that I learned later that Nancy Argentino had a relationship with Hulk Hogan, way back in the day, because I don't think he met and married Linda until later in his career. So I'm not sure if he was AWA or if he was early WWF bound at that time.
Right.
But and also, yeah, she was a ring rat, and that was kind of weird. And also, oh God, what was it? There was another one that was like a bombshell. Oh no, it was the Meltzer. So,
right.
The thing is that Jimmy Snuka,
yeah,
called the cops,
yeah,
saying that my girlfriend is not breathing, and they found her dead. So a couple of things about this did not seem correct in many of ways.
Right.
He told multiple stories to multiple people. Stuff changed over the years. I think we counted 5 different accounts that he told people.
Right. The most common one was she alleged to have fallen on route to the event. in the car, but it wasn't just Snuka and Nancy.
Yes, the Tongan kid
Yes.
was also in the car, and he was the only person who was in that car as well, and he said, no, that did not happen. Oh, that was the other one. I can't remember the name of the ring rat because it's only rumor, but she claims that she was in the room where the fight happened, and she said there was a definite fight between Snuka and Argentino.
Yeah, so Jimmy Snuka, obviously he's like high on cocaine half his life, and
Yes. Also, we have dubbed it apology cocaine because he did something threatening to one of Argentino's sisters, and she said that Snuka felt bad, apologized, and gave her a little baggie of cocaine. So now, if I say sorry, I'm going to give Peanut Gallery apology cocaine.
Yay!
But in all seriousness, he was hopped up on drugs. He was
Right, and then also he was dating a girl while he was still
married with 4
and
children.
living with his wife with 4 children.
Yep. It's such a gross situation. I mean, it's so hard. We can never 100% know what happened.
Right.
I can obviously tell you that based on what we've heard and the fact that the WWE covered it up and it was clear that they did.
Right, because there was a part of the story where Vince McMahon, a couple lawyers, the sheriff, and Jimmy Snuka and his lawyers, they all met in a room. Essentially, Vince McMahon paid off the.
It was not recorded, and
right.
also the problem was as well is that this was in Allentown.
Right.
Allentown at the time was a big wrestling city,
Right.
With a huge amount of finance.
Right.
That the town basically survived on the tapings because everyone came there. It was a big boom for the economy, and I think McMahon said, if you just sweep this under the rug, I'll give you this much, and we'll continue to come to your shows. If not, we can go anywhere else.
Right.
It's definitely a very dark little hole that I don't think McMahon wants to talk about too much.
Kind of like Chris Benoit.
Yep.
It's one of those things where we just don't mention it, and they didn't mention it when he got inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Yes. The autopsy was covered up.
Yep.
The wrongful death that the Argentinos brought up against Snuka, which they were supposed to get like $500,000. He never paid them whatsoever.
Right.
He skipped town essentially.
Yep.
He is.
And when they tried to sue him again, he was older and he was
This
not.
was like 2014.
Right.
He was 70. He had Alzheimer's up the ass. He had stomach cancer.
Right.
And I think like a year after he was indicted for it, he died.
Right.
So in a way, I think the Argentinos overall got some form of justice for what happened to Nancy.
Not necessarily.
Well, I think they did.
I don't think so. What was that justice?
The justice was that it came to light of what happened way back when and really diminished who Snuka is.
Right.
Because also, a year after the Argentino thing, he was arrested for domestic abuse.
Right. He was well known for his domestic abuse. And when the WWE inducted him into the Hall of Fame, it was a big deal. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people said that he didn't deserve it.
Yep.
That it was wrong for the WWE to celebrate that man because it goes against perceived values.
Right.
It's like putting Chris Benoit into the Hall of Fame. It's like, okay, are you really going to glorify someone who murdered...
I mean, he's in the Chris Benoit and Jimmy Superfly Snuka are in, I believe
they're in the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Yes,
but only Snuka's in the WWE Hall of Fame. But the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame is not beholden to
right. And honestly, I don't. This one is weird because Jimmy Superfly Snuka did a lot to revolutionize what we know as wrestling now.
Right.
A lot of his style, there wasn't anybody else who wrestled like Snuka.
Right.
It was very brute, theatrical,
Right.
and the majority of his moves were top rope moves.
Right.
And one of the biggest moments in all of wrestling, even to this day, was Jimmy Superfly Snuka doing the Superfly Splash off the top of the cage.
Yeah, that's true.
In Madison Square Garden
Yeah.
back in like '89.
Right. So, I'm not discounting that at all, but, there are demons, I think, in everyone's life, but the problem with his is that it was just covered up and not mentioned. In fact, if you look at his autobiography, he omits Nancy almost completely.
Yeah, he's like, she was a nice girl, but nothing happened. Bitch, you were dating her.
Right.
She was driving you around.
Right.
Because, okay, the story was that Buddy Rogers, who was the manager for Snuka at the time, was driving Snuka around. And he
Right.
started to refuse to do it because Snuka would be in the back sniffing cocaine essentially the entire time.
Right.
So as soon as Nancy started to date Snuka, they're like, we'll just pay you and you can just go on the road with him.
Right.
So it's like, okay, I can drop you off at your house, you can have your wife and hang out with your kids, and then you can have some yummy on the side.
Right.
But it's, it's such a scummy situation, not just for Snuka.
Right.
Because, I mean, for God's sake, every piece of evidence that they hid was, one, released, and number two, it's just so bad for the WWE because multiple accounts that this meeting happened. It was not recorded, it was not taped, and then after that happened, it seems like the case went, boom.
Done. Gone.
Yep, sniffed out of existence.
Yep.
And it's like, what really...
Sniffed.
Right? Right? What really happened in that room?
Right.
And, I think that McMahon, for the most part, is almost as culpable to the fact that we just don't really know what happened.
Right.
Than what the police did. The police accepted it, and this fucking sheriff was so transparent. It's like, I wanted to beat the shit out of him.
I know that guy has corruption written all over his face.
Oh my god, man, he was dodging question after question after question. It's like, you knew that the Tongan kid was in that car the night or the day that they were driving to Allentown. He got out of the car and saw Snuka and Argentino walk into the hotel room where she was perfectly fine. They never stopped whatsoever.
Right.
He was there. More people have come out and said, yes, he was with them. He rode with them all the time.
Right. And the other thing too is that this guy has a history of violence.
Also the autopsy.
Yeah. Where it showed, or at least it was purported to show, that she had multiple bruises around her neck.
She had lacerations all over her body. Her fingernails were ripped apart, showing a struggle. And they even said in that report, they're like, you need to reopen this case as a homicide.
Because that's how...
And this was an autopsy of Argentino's body back in 1989.
Right.
And
right after she died, they did an autopsy, and that's what it said.
And it did, and he was finally indicted in 2014.
Right.
It was almost 40 years.
Right.
God, man, this is like one of those things that I'm glad that Dark Side of the Ring brought this to our attention.
Right.
It's one of these things,
because you know that the whitewashed WWE isn't going to do anything about that.
Right.
They're going to hide it under the rug just like they did way back then. And the only reason they did that was because Jimmy Superfly Snuka was one of their biggest stars.
Right.
And for one of your biggest stars to be charged with murder is that's a death sentence to anyone's company.
Oh, 100%. I mean, obviously, it wasn't because they've had multiple problems with that too. Hulk Hogan, Chris Benoit.
Right, but, you just sweep those issues aside, and you can do certain things, but it's just like, at what point do you realize, like, okay, this person is a monster. He is dangerous.
Right, and Jimmy Superfly Snuka was dangerous. He was a very dangerous, a very strong man. And it's like, he was a lot older than Argentino. He was clearly a lot bigger than Argentino.
Right.
And it wouldn't have been hard for him to get really pissed off and choke the life out of that poor girl for no reason, because he's beaten her before.
Right.
It was obvious that he did. She was Stockholm Syndrome City.
Yeah, she was. Boy, she kept going right back to him after. It's like, what the hell is going on with you?
100% Stockholm Syndrome. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it was just the fault of Snuka, obviously. He had his hand legitimately around it. The WWF for bribing Allentown with money and the possibility of them not seeing that income anymore, and then the sheriff fucking accepting it.
Right. I mean, when do we say, well, Allentown, obviously they wanted to hide that too.
Right, they did. They absolutely did. They had a vested interest of hiding this just as much as WWE. They are just as guilty as Snuka is.
Right.
They really are.
Yeah.
And I mean, God, man, I loved this episode, but that sheriff pissed me off to a point that I can't even describe.
Right.
He was just a little shit. So anyway, I don't really think I have anything.
I don't have a lot more to say about it. I mean, it was a good episode.
Once again, they crushed it. The Dark Side of the Ring is probably one of my favorite docuseries about wrestling ever.
Right. So, anyways, I think we don't have much more to say on the show. I said, next week we'll probably continue on this Dark Side of the Ring stuff.
Yes. Next week's episode is another very interesting one because it is the assassination of Dino Bravo.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And then we will also cover some other topics as well. We'll announce that here probably Monday or Tuesday.
Yep.
And I think that's it. So thank you guys so much for
become a patron. We'll be doing live streams of the shows, and we'll do our reaction. And also, you get a lot of cool other perks, so go ahead and check it out with a link down below. Follow all of our social media and share this with your friends. And as always, be
majestic.